Welcome back to another episode of Picking Up the Pixels RPG Love. I'm your host, Boston. Joining me, as always, is Musim.
Hello.
We're here to talk about our usual slate of RPGs and, related things. Sometimes we talk about visual novels. Sometimes we talk about, cool puzzle games. Who knows? Sort of the JRPGs and overlooked games, potentially. Wanted to great start. Wanted to put a quick plug here for for a show that Musim and I do along with Moonpeer over on the TVGP feed over at tvgp.tv, which is the Game Club show. We play a game sort of collectively every month. We talk about it there at the end of the month. Playing some real cool stuff this year. And last year was actually pretty good too. So we've been doing that show for I don't know how long. Maybe I shouldn't do that math. Quite a while. But if you want to play a probably cool game every month, you should go play along with that stuff along with us. Anyways, Musim, what have you been playing this past month?
Mostly the game you just referenced. To be
Okay.
honest, so I realized last night that I had not played any RPGs, and then today one of my friends told me that the Night Springs DLC had dropped for Alan Wake 2. Um,
Oh,
so I started that up. I'm only maybe an hour in at most. Uh, and so far it is absolutely hilarious.
okay.
It does not appear that you're going to be playing Alan Wake through this DLC,
Mm.
and the first character you get to play is the obsessed Rose,
Mm.
uh, who, for whoever's played Alan Wake 1 or 2, that's the waitress that is, obsessed with Alan Wake and has a cardboard cutout.
Okay. Gotcha. That's
And
a great character to play as.
all the story stuff, I have no idea what's real and what's happening right now, and it is amazing. Um, it does seem to be like a weird, I mean, so far it's here's this area to wander around and have some laughs, and then here's a combat arena, and then
Mm.
walk this way, and like a bit of that, but it is still pretty entertaining, and they have more uh, live action acting.
Oh,
I
nice.
say that. Let me not mislead. I have not seen a live action Rose. I've just seen one of the live action characters you've already seen in the um, Alan Wake 2.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I don't know. I'm only somewhere between 40 to 60 minutes into it.
Right.
Um,
So far, so
and
good, though, it sounds like.
yes, I
Yeah.
approve. So that is all I've been doing, unfortunately. So Boston, what do you got?
All right. I played a game called Cat Quest, which is a very I guess I was looking for an RPG, kind of like an action RPG that was lighter lifting. I didn't want something that's super mechanics heavy or has the darkest storyline about the end of the world and the human condition or anything. And Cat Quest 1 and 2 are games that I've had on my radar for a while as number one, love cats. Number two, it seems like on the surface they seemed like kind of I, we kind of talk about starter RPGs every once in a while where it's like I'm trying not to say they're like easy RPGs for babies, nothing like that. It's like I don't want to misrepresent or anything. But I'm looking for something that isn't like let's tuck into a Souls game and something like that. Um, so these were added recently to um, PS Plus, and I thought, all right, here's a great time for me to pick up these games and play them. Hopefully, they're kind of a short experience. I started and finished and platinumed Cat Quest in a little under 10 hours. So that's the kind of length that you're getting here. This kind of doesn't overstay its welcome sort of experience. And it really is a great, very friendly, not super hardcore hack and slash RPG. You're doing a bunch of mini dungeons. You're doing a bunch of very silly quests. Everything is cat punned. Um, Like even the pause menu is spelled PAWS. Like everything about it is just very punny and tinged like that. It does tell a pretty good story, which I wasn't really expecting. There were some pretty good twists and turns in it, but a lot of it is just you're mashing the attack button. Enemies have this kind of larger ring that flashes where you can see that they're going to do an attack. You're going to roll out of the way, and that's kind of about it. It's as straightforward as it comes, but I liked that, and I liked the kind of straightforward nature of it, because that's pretty much what I was looking for, and it really met those needs. One thing that I thought it did that I don't know if I've seen an RPG do this, if ever, in a long time. There's not a ton of different weapons in the game. And there's not a lot of different armor types either. It's usually like this increases strength, this increases health, this gives you armor, this increases magic, that sort of thing. But when you pick up, like, let's say you're using your basic sword at the beginning of the game, and it's like level 1 does 5 damage, let's say. Whenever you pick up another sword, it automatically upgrades the level and stats of that weapon. So, like, you pick up another sword, your sword is now level 7, and it does 15 damage. So it's kind of nice to see. There's a little bit of randomness of it in it, which never really hurt the game, but I kind of liked this idea of not having to spend currency or pump XP into something or something like that. It was just a lot of like, just go find another one of these and you'll get a cool upgrade. But that was really it. I really liked this. I think if you're my only complaint about Cat Quest, which we'll talk about here in Cat Quest 2 in a moment, spoilers, is that I wish there was like an easier difficulty for this, because I think this would be a really great game for kids to get into, like a leveling system and play a hack and slash game, and for depends on how young they are, work on reading, because there's not a ton of text in this game, and deal with like side quests and level requirements and stuff like that. It would be nice if there was kind of a quote unquote story or beginner kind of difficulty in there. But I like Cat Quest 1 a lot, and as soon as I was done with that, I moved on to Cat Quest 2, because I thought, well, why not? Assumingly, probably another 10 hours. I'm not sure how long. Number one, game looks way better. The first game was, I think, 3 developers. So that pretty impressive how much stuff they put in there for just 3 developers. But Cat Quest 2 from the beginning is really interesting because there's 2 characters you're playing as, a cat and a dog. And you switch between them on PlayStation with triangle, and you're equipping the 2 of them differently. So it's not that one uses magic and one uses melee. It's just you can't equip the same sword to 2 of them. They have different equipment. But if you don't want to play solo, you can actually play co-op, which I think is really, really interesting in this. When you're playing solo, the other party member you're not playing as just attacks and uses magic and everything automatically, which I think helps overall, because I think that's going to make the game a little bit easier. And so far, I think the game on the normal difficulty has been a little bit harder than the first one, largely because you're spending more currency to upgrade your spells and your gear. You actually have to upgrade it now from blacksmiths, your gear, as opposed to just finding new ones and leveling up like the first game had. But I think some of the difficulties mitigated here because of you having this AI controlled second player character who's just pulling aggro and hacking and slashing and using spells and stuff. I haven't played this co-op, but I think that would probably be a really cool way to play this game, especially if it's about the length of the previous one. It'd be cool to just like dip in and out for an hour or so, and that's about how I play it. I play it for like a half an hour at a time, dip in, do a couple of quests, maybe do like a main storyline, and then kind of get back out for a couple of days. Um, that being said, this game does have a story difficulty. And it's very much like, hey man, not used to hack and slash, not used to RPGs. This is really the difficulty for you, and I really like that option. I don't remember. I've been playing a bunch of different games lately that have selectable difficulties like this, and I can't remember if it's this or Mini Shoot Adventures that says, hey, you can't change the difficulty once you start. So if you're going to play Cat Quest 2, make sure you read that menu when you go to start your game. But this game follows the same path that the first one did. You're following this pretty fun and punny main storyline. You've got all the little mini dungeons you're going through and doing storylines and quests in there. There are a lot more like traps and effects that are happening in dungeons. One of the criticisms I could have of the first one compared to this one would be you go in the dungeon and there's kind of nothing stopping you from just wiping out all of the enemies in there. And this one has like spike traps and arrow traps and kind of your normal trap, dungeon trap things you would think of, like, oh, I stepped on a pressure plate, here comes some arrows, that sort of thing. So I think that's a little bit more interesting, and they have some stuff where enemies have ranged attacks in this game, which I didn't realize there were no ranged attacks in the first game until someone like a hedgehog threw a fireball at me, and I was like, wait, what? That's illegal. What are you doing here? So I think I'm maybe like 2 hours into this game, and I'm like level 30 something. So you kind of can kind of get the idea of how these games normally go, where it's not one of these games where it's like, all right, I'm 3 hours in and I'm finally finished the tutorial, I'm level 2. It's definitely not like Persona 5 or anything. They're really motoring you pretty quickly through these games, which is pretty exciting. But I'm excited to play more of this. I haven't, Musim was just talking about playing our latest Game Club game, which is Mini Shoot Adventures, which has taken up a lot of my time, along with the next game I'll talk about. But I'm hoping to dive back into playing more of this, because I think this is cool. And Cat Quest 3 comes out this August, I think it is. I was watching a trailer of that the other day, and it's like, yeah, you got a pirate ship now, and you're just fighting other pirate ships out on the ocean. And it's like, yep, great. That's 2 thumbs up. I love it. Way into it. So that's Cat Quest 2. I'll probably talk about this more over the next coming months as I kind of slowly work my way through it. But I think these 2 games are really cool. If you have PS Plus, they're free at the time of recording. It seems like a cool game to play, especially this one co-op. Maybe especially for people that are looking for something that's a little bit lighter lifting here. These 2 games seem pretty cool. Last game here this month, got the big one, Destiny 2, The Final Shape. Here, just launched this past week. I'm not going to talk about story spoiler stuff, because this is kind of the culmination of Bungie's calling it the Light and Dark saga. It's the storyline that started with Destiny 1's launch, so I don't really want to spoil the ending of a 10-year story, but I will kind of talk around it. I do appreciate that The Final Shape opens with a kind of story recap of what's happened in the last, maybe let's call it like year to year and a half of Destiny, sort of catching people up that maybe haven't played since Lightfall, which is the last big expansion about a year and a half ago, and maybe a little bit before that, about like, hey, who's Crow? Like what happened in what happened to Cade? When when did he die? That sort of stuff, sort of refreshing people about like, hey, who are the vanguard and all of that. And I appreciate that there's one of Destiny's biggest problems for a long time has been like, oh, you haven't been playing for the last 8.5 years. Well, you better hit YouTube to learn anything that's going on. So I appreciate any sort of attempt of just let's try and refresh and give you the Cliff's Notes here before you get in. Um, and then it immediately opens up with like, yeah, man, the witness is doing some real bad stuff. If you've seen any Destiny stuff, that's the tall person that has like the smoke faces coming out of their head. It's just like, yeah, they're the bad guy, and they're looking to kind of crystallize and the entire solar system here. And at that point, it's just basically like, all right, we opened up a path into the Traveler. If you've seen any of the promotional stuff around the final shape, you've seen the Traveler, which is that big white orb. You've seen that kind of pinkish purplish triangle in the side of it. That's the portal that the Witness opened to go inside to kind of take over all that power. We opened a path into there as well. We're hopping in there to go sort of stop the Witness. And at that point, it's really kind of like a no breaks sort of thing at that point, which is 7 story missions leading up to the raid. And though all of those story missions leading up to that point have been really, really good. I think there's some stuff in the campaign that I think is really cool. You spend your time, they call it the pale heart of the Traveler is the sort of inside area, and it's all they managed to, how do I explain this? It's all like remixed and broken kind of memories of architecture across Destiny 1 and 2. So your this isn't a spoiler because you've probably seen it in any of the trailers, but like your home base is an overgrown version of Destiny 1's tower. Like you're running through this giant exploration spaces inside the Pale Heart, and it's all like fallen architecture next to the like NASA architecture from the Cosmodrome on Earth, next to some Vex stuff, and all that's overgrown, and there's these giant ghosts that are laying everywhere. It's this really, really interesting approach they've taken of the inside of the Traveler being kind of the shared memories of everybody in the solar system. And I think it looks really, really interesting. And a lot of that is sort of meshed and infected by the Witness's influence inside of the Pale Heart. So you're seeing, over the last couple of years, we've seen more of the architecture from the pyramid stuff. So we're seeing these like animals and enemies kind of encased in amber. We're seeing like almost like stuff from The Cell, where it's like this Cabal war beast that's been split into pieces, and it's like turned into a statue, and these incredible deep colors that the Witness's architecture is really using. So it's kind of interesting to see all of that stuff meshing and melding together, and you see the influence as you get. The campaign is largely one march from where you enter into the Witness all the way to when you enter into the Traveler, and immediately you see all the way off in the distance this like giant volcano They call it the monolith from the witness. So you're heading that way and kind of trying to figure out how you're going to defeat the witness as you're going through. Um, in a way that's cool because you're the first people there, like you and the other characters that are with you. So you're setting up campfires as you're going that serve as kind of your touchstones and your landing zones as you're going throughout. So it's this. It sounds less interesting than it is. It's a straight march to where the witness is, but it's interesting that for the first time, really in this game, you're breaking new ground. You're really exploring someplace that you're the first person to be in, and you can tell how cool it is, but you can tell how sort of infected and sick the traveler has become based on all this influence. Um, I was also surprised at how many puzzles there were in the campaign. That's not a negative. I think one thing that is always kind of the criticism of the Destiny franchise has been about a lot of like, oh well, me and my ghost are gonna run over to this place, and Ghost is gonna scan it for 30 seconds while I fight off a bunch of enemies. Here we go. I'm gonna hold a plate and throw a ball. It's like that's kind of your standard Destiny activities you do. Um, so it's nice to see them have some actual puzzles in here that you have to do puzzle solving in. You have to do a bunch of different stuff in. Not the heaviest lifting stuff. There was only one puzzle where I was like, wait, what am I supposed to do? But that was my fault, really, because I was staying up too late trying to finish the campaign. Um, but it's nice to see there being some variety there. Um, I This one's a harder one to talk about. The one of the bigger characters in this campaign is Zavala, who has been a major character in Destiny for since the beginning. Um, and Zavala's been getting a ton of story stuff over the last couple of years, anyways, as we kind of delve more into his backstory. And there have been some really great seasons dealing with, the regrets of your past, and Zavala's been alive for hundreds of years. So, like, what does that mean for kind of saying goodbye to the people that you're outliving? Your family, your friends that passed away 400 years ago, stuff like that. Um, Lance Reddick passed away about a year and a half ago. Um, and they brought probably the best person you could bring in to voice his character, which is Keith David. Um, and Keith David's an incredible actor, and he does such a good job here. But it's really hard to kind of divorce that character from Lance Reddick's performance, especially at the end of this big trip we've taken with this character. So it's really it. I think he does a really great job in here. There's some stuff in here that I wish that Lance Reddick was around to hear his take on it, because I think he would have had a different take on some voice reads for the character. I don't really want to get into what it is, because it's some spoiler stuff for the end of the campaign. But it's always going to be, what if, what could have been, etc. But I think Keith David did a really, really great job. You kind of can't get anybody better than him. You can't ask for like, oh yeah, we only got Keith David. It's like one of the best, film actors of our generation. You kind of can't go wrong with that. Um, I What are the other? So there's another big feature here too called Prismatic. Um, Usually when you get a big expansion like this, you get like a new element or something. We got stasis, we got strand. Those stuff. That stuff came in with these big expansions. We didn't get one this time. There's a new super for each class. So like I play warlock. There's a new solar subclass. I think it's called Song of Flame. That's really cool. You're like sending out these grenades that are basically birds that hunt out your enemies. It's pretty cool. But I haven't played with it that much because I've been playing a lot with Prismatic, which is essentially uh, mixing and matching light and dark subclass abilities from all of the other subclasses. So if you want a stasis melee, but you really like the arc grenade and you really like the solar subclass ability, smush all those together in one single subclass. And then you have a suite of like 5, I think, supers you can pick from. And then on top of that, you have a prismatic specific effect. So you have a separate bar that's under your super bar that's filling up based on it kind of fills in from the sides. One half is light abilities and weapon kills. The other side is dark abilities and weapon kills. When that fills up, you click in the 2 sticks. I don't know what you do on PC, and then at that point, all of your abilities kind of recharge incredibly quickly. You have a brand new grenade you can throw it down. On Warlock, it's like a combination of stasis freeze and void, like pulling in effects. It's pretty bonkers, and I don't even have all of the abilities and like class options unlocked yet. So I don't really know how bonkers it gets near the end, but that's on my laundry list of many things to do here post campaign to start working on. I do appreciate that they learned the I was gonna say they learned a lesson, but that's like kind of crappy. But I don't know how else to say it. But one of the frustrations of Lightfall was like, I'm gonna go on a mission. They're gonna give me a strand to play with, which was the new subclass at that point. I'm gonna play with strand for like 10 minutes, and they're gonna take it away, and I won't have it again until the next mission where I play it for 10 minutes. At the end of the first mission in Final Shape, they give you Prismatic, and they give you kind of a base suite of skills that all synergize with each other. So they kind of give you a basic build right away. And then as the campaign continues and as you do more stuff in the campaign and in the Pale Heart, you're unlocking more options for Prismatic, which I think is a much better way of doing it. So it's like, yeah, I want to play with a cool new toy. I don't want you to just take it away and like only have it for a couple of minutes here and there. So I think that's a really smart way of them doing it. There's also a whole bunch of other stuff that they have here in the game, but it's a little bit too inside baseball for some of the stuff. There's a new. So one of the more interesting things about the Pale Heart is you go through the campaign solo. Like you can bring fire team members with you, but unlike most of the destinations in Destiny's history, when you're wandering around the Pale Heart, it's just you. Like when you're in the patrol areas, there's no match-made people there. It's really your story and kind of your progression. And that continues once you finish the campaign. So if you're in the Pale Heart, like I'm doing the new overthrow activity, it's just me, which so far I've really enjoyed. I kind of miss seeing people every once in a while, but I also appreciate there being something a little bit different of just like, no, it's you, and like if you want to invite your friends in, sure, it's them too. But I was really worried about this overthrow activity because it's a large scale activity taking place in some of the bigger areas, and you're kind of doing public events and other activities to fill up this meter. Fill up the meter a couple of times, you fight a boss, and you get some good rewards. And thankfully, with how they've made it, I don't feel like I'm losing out because it's just me. Like the difficulty feels really well tuned um, to just being you playing. I haven't had a chance to play with anybody else yet because um, you largely can't do much in the game until you finish the campaign, which again makes sense. Um, so I'm waiting for a bunch of other people that are moving at different speeds to kind of finish the campaign, and we'll see how that stuff plays once there's more people in. The last thing I want to talk about here, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm going to talk about the end of the story here in sort of broadest terms. So if you're avoiding some of that stuff, skip forward a little bit, and this is my last game, and we'll be talking about releases next. I think after Lightfall's kind of story disappointments, excuse me, myself and a lot of others were worried about Bungie sticking the landing, let's say. Especially if you're someone like me that's been so invested in Destiny for the last decade. How do you finish that 10-year story that feels satisfying while still managing to leave the door open for more Destiny stuff? Because Bungie has done a really good job of being out there over the last couple of weeks saying, this isn't the end of Destiny, like as an overall thing. This isn't the end of Destiny 2. There's a new... They're replacing seasons with episodes, which is basically, there were like 4 3-month seasons a year. Now there's going to be 3 4-month episodes a year that kind of unlock and unveil over time. So there's the first episode that launches on Tuesday of next week. So the future of Destiny continues immediately, but it's easy to sort of be on the outside and look and say like, well, all right, well, Destiny's over because we're kind of putting a bow on it. The ending of this thing was perfect. Like I can't understate how much they nailed this to a T. Like so basically how the story progression works. Again, not spoiling. You finish the 7 story missions. You get kind of a big story beat at the end. And then they say what's the specific word in the game? Minor spoilers, but like the fight with the witness will continue. It like very much like, hey, the raid is launching here in 2 days after launch. Wink. That sort of thing. Like maybe the fight will continue in the raid. And at that point, the game kind of starts the standard post-campaign like quest line dump, where it's like, all right, this guy has 3 quests. This guy has a bunch of quests. Whoops, you're tripping over exotic weapon quests like crazy. And there's one quest line called Wild Hunt, I think it is. Excuse me if I'm getting some of these names wrong. It's been out for like 3 days. And Bungie was honest saying like, hey, you got to finish the campaign, and then you got to finish this quest line before you can launch the raid. And then it turns out also to launch the thing we'll talk about here in a minute. And that stuff really, 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 really matters, because it's extending the end of the Light and Dark saga and kind of showing you what the next steps are going to be. So it's putting a bow on everything Destiny 1 and 2 so far, and like really the stuff that started 10 years ago, while still opening enough doors to say like the world of Destiny is continuing to evolve and grow and move on and keep going in an interesting way. So that quest especially was really great, and it deals a lot with Cade and Crow, who've been two pretty important characters for the last couple of years. And then after that, the what is so far turning out to be Destiny's hardest raid. The contest mode is still underway as we're recording. In the first 27 hours or so, 3 teams have completed the raid so far, which is usually like in 5 hours or so, you've had like 100 teams complete it. So this is incredibly difficult. But when the first team cleared it, a brand new mission unlocked for all players. And I should have written down the name of this mission. I totally forgot. It's Destiny's first 12-player mission.
Oh,
So
wow.
you and 11 other people, to use Bungie parlance, kind of go finish the fight in a way that felt so cool, that me and like 11 other actual human players were going and doing this really big, really genuinely epic fight and like storyline and all of this stuff. And that it has one of the most genuinely moving story beats as soon as that mission ends. Again, not going to spoil it. Crying like a baby, like at 6:30 this morning when I was playing that mission of just like Destiny, boo. But like, I'm so incredibly happy that they stuck the landing. They really nailed this story. They really gave us an ending that feels like Destiny and really felt like, for as much as I was playing with millions of other people and 11 other people during that mission, like it's still really my Guardian's story. It's the Guardian and their ghost, like my Guardian, my ghost, doing this storyline and like finishing up our 10 years of storyline. And then going through all of that stuff, and then thankfully at the end of all of that being very clear about like, here's where Destiny goes next. Because at the end of it, there will be a famous shot at the end of this game that I don't want to spoil. But while you're kind of enjoying that shot, you're hearing a bunch of stuff of like, well, here's the kind of fallout from all that stuff we did, because of course there has to be some sort of fallout. And here's what's going to happen next. Like here's how things look, and here's going to be what's the next steps here. So it's nice to see not only outside of the game have they been dealing with like addressing that, but also in the game of saying like, look, this isn't the end of your story. This isn't the end of Destiny. This isn't the end of like anything you've been doing. Destiny's going to keep going, and they even have, Bungie has a live stream or a recorded video, I can't really tell, on Tuesday of just like, hey man, here's what's up next for Destiny. Like here's, now that we've put out the final shape and now that you've seen kind of the end of this saga, where are we going next? Which I think is really cool. I am so incredibly happy and I'm so incredibly impressed that they nailed it and that they managed to come up with an ending and a story that is the perfect ending for that saga. And it's also been nice to see finishing it, just the internet being like, yeah, they nailed it, man. Like it's the prevailing attitude. Like I don't really I enjoy Destiny a lot more than Destiny other Destiny players do. It's just the like it's the Star Wars fan thing of like, yeah, I love of course I hate Star Wars. It's my favorite thing. It's like of course I hate Destiny. It's the thing I play for 40 hours a week. Um it's nice to see the community rally around being like, you know what? Yeah. Like I got to give you credit. You did genuinely really nail it. I don't know what else to say. Part of me is relieved, part of me is happy, and part of me is just like a little emotionally raw from from seeing the end of this story just this morning. So, um, my only thing and kind of my only overall concern is with how great this ending is and with how great Destiny is sort of in an overall state right now. It seems like a really great place to hop into Destiny. Like if you haven't played for a while, or maybe if you're starting to play Destiny, it seems like from a gameplay standpoint, it seems like a really great spot to hop in. I just I'm too deep into the storyline to really know if it is a great place story wise to hop in, which is kind of always my concern. How much does this story pay off? How much does it hit if you haven't been playing for 10 years? I'm not sure.
I mean, you can still play at least some of the old content, right, to catch up on the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, there's like I think it's everything Shadowkeep and beyond. So it's the last like was it 3 or 4 expansions, I think. So there's a lot of stuff there. And I do think they do a really good job of like trying to get you into like here's who all the characters are and here's what happened and all of that. And like if you really want to go deep down the rabbit hole, one of is a really great Destiny lore YouTuber called My Name is Byf, BYF. He put out a 10-hour complete, like the beginning of Destiny 1 to the launch of Final Shape, like lore and storyline overview, which I haven't watched largely because I have lived like all of this stuff. But everybody says it's really, really, really good. So I think if you really want to like tuck into something that's cool, and he does really know his stuff lore wise. So there's also another popular one I've seen out there that's like 40 minutes of just like we are sprinting through the story. You need to know this story, and you don't have 10 hours. Got 41 minutes, man. Here we go. And you have a couple of options, I think, if you wanna kind of catch up. But I don't know. I'm just happy that this expansion is good, especially coming off of Lightfall being not bad, but kind of a letdown overall. And then, like, because it's only been out for a couple of days, only barely scratching the surface of what stuff is in here, and only kind of barely scratching the surface of the Pale Heart too. So, but so far everything seems really great. The first episode, like I said, launches on Tuesday, so we'll kind of start seeing where Destiny's story is going to go, starting then, and hopefully it continues kind of on a high note. But I certainly wouldn't blame people for kind of tapping out at this point, especially with how solid the ending was, of just sort of being like, this is probably my point to leave. And it's like, yeah, I kind of understand that. Like you put a nice tidy bow on the whole thing, and if you're happy with how this ended, I could definitely understand that. I could definitely see where you're coming from. You could do a lot worse with kind of how Destiny and Destiny 2 ended so far. So, I don't know if you have any questions or anything. I sort of monologued here for a very long time.
Yeah, you covered it pretty
Yeah.
well. Because I mean, we can play some of the old story. It sounds like I didn't realize this was happening in Destiny, so
Yeah.
it's cool to kind of have you share that moment with us. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I kind of wish I could talk more about some of the ending stuff, but I really don't want to spoil it. I think especially because it was such an impactful story, which I think uh, helps a lot. And I really don't want to spoil any of that stuff. So, all right, that's all I've been playing. Let's move on over to releases here, because we have surprisingly a bunch of releases here coming out this month. Octopath Traveler is out now on PS4 and PS5. That also got a release on Game Pass on Xbox and PC platforms. Um, so that was kind of a surprise drop of like, oh yeah, Octopath Traveler is on a bunch of other stuff. Also now it's on PS4 and PS5. So I, you played Octopath Traveler, right?
uh, I bought it and then never played it, and then sold it for more than I bought it for.
Okay,
Honestly.
there you go. That's a pretty good deal. I played a handful of hours of this, and it didn't really click with me. I really liked the combat system, but it didn't. There was something about it that really didn't click with me. I need to try Octopath Traveler 2 because people are saying like, hey, if the first one didn't click with you, you should probably play the second one because it sort of fixed a lot of the issues of the first one. Um, so if you haven't played the first one and you've been interested in it, it seems like it's going to run pretty well on PS4 and PS5. But speaking of the second one, that's also out now on Xbox One and Series consoles. That is Game Pass as well. And because I know that was on Switch, PC, and PS4 before, and I think maybe PS5. So now that's on Xbox platforms as well. Really happy to see Square Enix putting more stuff on Game Pass, especially their kind of big marquee JRPGs, because I feel like not a lot of companies have been doing that, especially for JRPGs. So if you've been interested in these, go check them out. They're pretty interesting. The second one seems pretty cool, and I think from what I've seen, not this story of the second one doesn't rely a lot on the story of the first one. So like you kind of don't have to worry about playing the first one before you hop in. So seems pretty cool. Both of those out right now. Um, Also, sorry. Okay, coming up next, Monster Hunter Stories comes out PS4, Switch, and PC on June 14th. These were I think it came out on 3DS. These are the Monster Hunter turn-based RPGs. So it's sort of interesting seeing the Monster Hunter press releases coming out being like the first Monster Hunter RPGs, and I was like, I mean, technically, yeah, sure, but like, I could get behind people calling the other Monster Hunter games RPGs, but I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying here. Sure, yeah. Um, so I've been interested in these for a while, largely because I think Monster Hunter seems neat, and them kind of taking those games and turning them into turn-based RPGs sounds really cool. But I never picked them up on DS or 3DS or whatever they came out on. So that sounds kind of neat. And they also are releasing at the same time Monster Hunter Stories 2. That one only comes out on PS4 for right now. That comes out on Switch and PC next month. I'm not sure what the delay is, but I think I've seen a dual pack here for PS4. So if you're interested in getting both of those kind of in one fell swoop, you can pick up both of those at the same time. Um, so we'll see. I'm kind of interested. I feel like we've had like an embarrassment of riches of JRPGs this year. So two kind of cool classic Monster Hunter RPGs coming out. I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds cool. I'll get to you eventually. No, I have no
Yeah.
idea. I haven't even started Final Fantasy 16, so like, whatever, man. Like, you get in line. You get on the pile with all the other Square Enix RPGs that have come out. Um, so I'm sorry. And speaking of games that are incredibly important and coming out here soon, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance comes out on the same day, June 14th, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series consoles, Switch, and PC. Um, God, this looks so good. Like,
Yeah.
I I would have bought this just for like 60 frames per second by itself, of just like, here, SMT5, you liked it and it ran a little rough on Switch. It's just that game just kind of running smoother. But no, they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna add like 90 more hours and a whole grip of new demons and systems and stuff. And like, hey, you want to do stuff in the human world and like do more school stuff? We got that too. Don't you worry. We got even more of that stuff. It's like, oh man. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I guess I gotta pick this bad boy up.
Atlas wants all your free time.
Yeah, they really do. And it's just, if the SMT games weren't so good, I wouldn't be so
Yeah.
upset. I'd be like, I'll wait for Persona 6. It's fine. But
Yeah.
man, SMT 5, of what I played that the couple of hours, it's just like, yeah, man, these mainline SMT games are so good.
Yeah, I can't remember why I dropped off it, but yeah, this will definitely be the version to start over with. I think that honestly, the thing that has me most concerned is Metaphor coming out in October and looking very much like one of these games, honestly.
It's really
Uh,
funny watching the like, what they're calling, like, refantasio metaphor or whatever that game
yeah.
is. Um, it's so funny to see them promoting that game of like, here's the kind of like press turn SMT system that we're calling by a different name. And here's kind of some of the Persona trappings, and we're never saying Persona, and we're mushing the two of those together. How does that sound? I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds really good. What? And it looks
Yeah.
incredibly cool. What are you doing? Sheesh.
Game looks
So,
gorgeous too, but it's
yeah,
can I start SMT5 and finish it
that's
with
right.
enough time to have a cleanser before I start Metaphor?
That's right. Because my only concern with SMT5 is, I know that they're saying that if you played SMT5 before, you can play the original path or you can start on the kind of new path that's in SMT5. My only, not concern, but curiosity is really, I want to play the kind of normal path to begin with, unless, the game comes out and everybody's like, don't worry about the normal path. The new path is kind of the best thing. Um, I'm hoping that the distinction between the two of those when you're playing the game is very clear, as opposed to them being like, I don't want them to do the JRPG thing where you start the game and someone's like, this person wants to be your friend. Do you say yes or no? And you're like, nah,
Oh
man, I'm
gosh.
cool. And it's like, yeah, you start on the old path now. And she's like,
Oh
wait, no,
man.
wait, that wasn't even a choice. Like, what are you doing? Um,
Yeah.
so
I feel
curious
like
to see how
Atlas
that's going to work out.
usually doesn't do that to us. Like
Yeah.
Persona 3 Fest, like the answer was a separate menu option.
Hmm. That's true. That's true. Um,
Granted, that was 15 years ago, so who knows? But
I don't even want to think about that
uh,
PS2 game that I
yeah,
I loved. Time is rough, man.
it
Yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to pick this up because I really do want to play SMT5. Musim and I were talking about My kid being off on summer break now, which makes an SMT game on the big TV a bit of a harder prospect. So I might not be picking this up and playing it immediately. But I still have the like. Speaking of PS2, I still have that like Atlas scarcity mindset of like, well, I gotta pick it up day one because they're only making one print run of this Atlas game, and it's just like, yeah, you can still go get like the original Persona 5 on PS3 now. So like, I don't need to, but I probably still will. So we'll see. Tune in next month. One of the two of us, or maybe both of us, have maybe checked some of it out. And the other big release here coming out on June 21st is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. Comes out PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series consoles, and PC. This is the expansion for Elden Ring. Seems like this is the only one they're planning on doing, which kind of makes sense. It sounds like they're already prepping to get off onto their next thing. But I it's funny because it's kind of hard to tell what is the new stuff in this DLC. It sounds like there's a brand new area, and I'm sure there's like a bajillion of incredibly difficult bosses. But so much of the the like coverage of this game is a lot of like, shut up, there's new Elden Ring. We're playing it, baby. And it's just like, yeah, but like, what is there new stuff? And they're like, yeah, man, it's more Elden Ring. Get in. It's like,
I
okay, cool.
Elden Ring fans are intense.
I know. Like I gotta give it to him. Like I I got a lot of respect for Elden Ring fans, but sometimes you need the deets of like, are there new like weapons? Sure, there's new bosses because like that's what they do. But like they're new. I'm sure there's like new weapons and armor and stuff. Probably some new crazy story stuff. But my hope is that with this DLC, I hope the story stuff that people love in Elden Ring gets a really nice bow on it. And like people can say like, all right, I think when you look at a lot of DLC for some kind of Souls-like games, I think the story stuff seems to be a pretty common complaint of like, yeah, we got some cool bosses and like look at these cool areas and ooh, look at these weapons. But the story didn't really exist. I hope that's not the case here. I hope there's kind of a good solid ending on top of this. So fingers crossed. All right. That's all of our releases for this upcoming month. As far as I can tell, unless Square Enix or somebody decides to shadow drop 3 more titles in the middle of the month. If they do, we'll probably be talking about them next month. If you'd like to visit us, you can do so at pickingupthepixels.com. Everywhere to find and follow us is on the right-hand side of the page over there. If you're not already a member of our Discord server, you head over to discord.tvgp.tv. Come and join the best community on the internet over there. As I say all the time on TVGP, it's not one of those servers where you have like 400 different channels and someone yells at you if you post in the wrong one, and there's like, you gotta agree to like a 50-step process to get in, and the server moves super fast. It's not like that. It's a tight community of chill people. We're largely talking about a lot of really gross junk food a lot. So if you're into that, come hang out with us over there. Musim, where can we find you online?
You can find links to everything I do at linktr.ee/John Musim. That's Musim, John with an H.
You can find all my stuff over at campsite.bio/Jansten, Jansten. It's got all my links to all the different shows and my Destiny website and all the social media stuff that I like largely don't post on anymore, but all that stuff you can find over there. Thank you, as always, to everybody that listened to the show. We do greatly appreciate you tuning in every month. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all next month. Bye.
Bye.